You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Detroit, City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan, along with my good friend
Charles Avison.
Charles, he's an amazing dude because he wrote this trilogy of books. It's just this amazing collection of Detroit history. It's called Detroit, City of Champions, all about the 1935 year and the amazing championships, 33 in all, the three majors at the time. Baseball,
30, and 30,
football, hockey.
Tigers, Lions, Red Wings first championship, same season.
And then
just so many
33 others.
Yeah, 30 others. 30 others on top of the three majors. And so it's a year unlike anything else. And the fact that we can do an entire show. What are we on? Like episode? What was this? Episode
it's 21, I believe. Yeah, and
21 episodes, and we're not even through like the line. Like there's unlimited content we have with this show.
So so it's simply astounding. And in your travels, you collecting these stories, you've run into some amazing people, and we've shared the last few weeks with one of those amazing people, Tom Eurich. Tom, thanks for coming back again.
Well, what an honor to be the 1935 champions. It's quite an honor to be right in this chair.
And for the 50th anniversary, there was an event for the 50th anniversary of the Lions championship, and there were a couple Tigers there too, I do believe, right?
Were
there Tigers there? No.
Well, there was at that
people
meeting,
hanging out.
There was probably 80 people, and
all right.
I know Joe Schmidt and some of the world champion Lions from the 50s were there.
Okay.
Chuck Girard.
Lions across the ages were there.
But I don't know if there was any baseball players there.
But Lions across the ages were there for the 50th anniversary, and you had the good journalist, radio reporter that you were. You had your tape recorder, and you talked to the guys that were there. There were like 10 guys there. You got a good chunk of talking to, like at least 9 of them. And we were listening to those.
Well, what happened was that Bob James, after the meeting was over, he talked to some of the Lions to see if they wanted to participate in the interview, and about 4 of them volunteered. And we did it in the lobby about 2:30 in the morning. Never forget it.
Yeah, they were all partying and stuff, right?
That party was wild.
Because when you listen to tapes, you can hear them get a little bit sauced up a little bit. Yeah. They're laughing. They're like, "Oh man, let me get out there!"
Yeah, they were playing that game. They were in Detroit from Friday to Saturday, and they were all excited that evening because the next day they were going to see the Miami Dolphins play
in the Silverdome.
In the Silverdome,
they were going to be honored, didn't they? Did they get to go out on the field in that and wave to the fans?
Yes, at the game. No, I wasn't at the game, but consequently, they were really excited.
They're on the tapes. They're talking about it. Yeah. And here's another thing, real quick, before we move on from that thing. You actually kind of raise a point, and I forget if we talked about it last week or anything, but Don Shula gave one of the headlining speeches at the party because the Dolphins were in town to play the Lions, and Don Shula had been the defensive coordinator for the Lions in the 50s,
George Wilson
right?
hired him.
Yeah, and so he had Don Shula had an attachment with the Detroit Lions in the fact that he was at that point he was already a legend. I mean, it's the 80s, he was already a legend.
He was a legend, and nobody knew that he was there or he was going to come. He was a surprise guest, and everybody was in shock. You could hear a pin drop.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like all of a sudden Don Shula walks out and starts giving a speech on the 1935 championship team.
And he mentioned Portsmouth, and he mentioned the whole. He gave all of his credit to the Detroit Lions.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, this whole story, Jane, we talked about it along the lines about like, there's so many different, there's if you just say the story like, hey, there's the 3 teams, the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings all win their first championships. And then there's this team, and then there's that team, and then this team. That's what I'm loving about this show is that we actually get to probe some of the depths of this and some of the different sort of, all these like sort of these elements that spin off of it. In like this whole thing, this is not, you don't see like, when was the last like newspaper article that talked about the fact about like this party or about the, Don Shula speaking about it. This is like archival stuff. Like this is stuff that, once we put this out there, you know what I mean? Like, it opens up the idea for future studies by other people that might be interested in this story to say, to remember this component of the story, that there was a 50th year anniversary party for all these guys.
The amazing thing about that reunion, there was no press there. There was no television.
That's what I'm saying.
There, nothing.
Yeah.
No I was the only radio correspondent. And thank goodness for that, because I had all the time in the world to interview. Now, if I would have had competition, I probably would have never gotten that tape.
Yeah. And
so you got about 25 minutes worth of tape talking to these guys.
Yes.
So now what did you do with that? Did you play that in its entirety on your radio show? What did you do with that?
In 1985 at this WCAR, I played the whole gamut to recognize the City of Champions, the Charlie Gehringer, and the Lions to represent the full complement of the of the City of Champions of 1935.
Okay.
But I want to take it back just a quick second, because Tom mentioned something that I have an absolute affinity towards, and I've said it at the beginning, that it was in the first few episodes of the show, is the lack of media coverage on all this. Because, like you say, you're the only guy there. We did an event. I did an event. It was the I want to say 75th anniversary of Champions Day. I think it was the 75th. And the Historical Museum rolled out this big, we haven't even talked about Champions Day, but it's spoiler alert. It was a huge party at the end of the season, which it was at the Masonic Temple in Detroit, where there's 800 fans. All these different people are there. It's a massive celebration. They say it was the largest gathering of champions under a single roof. And so it was the 75th anniversary. The museum had gotten Dave Bing to re-recognize Champions Day by signing a document. And it was the vice mayor was there, assistant mayor, whatever, was there to, read a little speech. And we had the plaque out. There's a big City of Champions plaque that was signed by every governor in the country. Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed. I mean, it was this huge thing. And here's the thing. I've already, spoiler alert, as far as what I'm leading up to, there was no media. No. There was no media there. I got a copy of it on my digital phone, my phone, but there's no media. 75th anniversary. They bring out the City of Champions,
which was lost, which was a story in itself.
Which was lost. That is a whole story.
That's another story.
Absolutely, that in itself is it was like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they file that box in the bottom of the thing where there's like 8 million other boxes. That's how they had to pull that out. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, there has been just an absolute, and even since I started this with the first book and all this, like, still to this day, there's yet to be anything like from any of the major newspapers or anything, like, even like, I mean, you see like a mention every once in a while, but there's never been any type of like,
and there's no recognition of the depth
of this incredible story,
of the depth of it too. It says, their first championship was this, or City of Champions. It only skims the surface ever, and usually misses the depth of where we're at.
And this is what kind of gets me, is the teams themselves. Everybody involved in the mainstream, the sort of Detroit media. It's like they do just barely enough to let people know that they kind of know about it. But there's never any recognition, like above and beyond. Like the only Detroit Lion from this year that's recognized is Dutch Clark, because he's like one of the we call him the Ty Cobb of football. He was so great that you just have to put his name on your wall, retire his number. In the case of the Tigers, Mickey Cochran, which we spent like 3 episodes talking about just how critical he was. I mean, he was one of the most important players in the history of Detroit Tigers, and his name's on the Tiger Stadium wall, but it's like they call it, his number's not retired, and it's just they call it like I forgot what the exact terminology. It's like a recognized name or something. It's not like, it's like kind of off to the side with a couple other names. It's not like dead center with like these other names retired. And then for the Red Wings, there's no retired names from the team. For every other championship year, for every Detroit sports team, at least one player, Tigers, Lions, Red Wings, Pistons, every single championship team has at least one player's number retired on these walls for all their teams, except for the 1935.
Well, we
Red
haven't
Wings.
gotten to the Wings yet.
I know, but I'm saying like,
I'm interested to see who that standout player is going to be.
I know, but I'm trying to give you a scope here about just how forgotten this is in the playoff. Of what Tom's saying is that there is no media at that event, and every single event that is not covered, that's not brought out, just makes it more and more difficult. It means that these stories from the past fade farther and farther away, and they just and that's why this that's
what
why
were you trying to do?
Well, what I was going to say about the reunion in reunion of 1935, Jack Bailey from WCAR, the manager, he had some tickets to go to the memorial for the 1935, the Golden Huddle. It was like looking at a dinosaur. Nobody took them.
Yeah.
And he just threw them in the wastepaper basket.
That's what I'm talking about.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that. But boy, I already had the invitation from Mayor Kushner. I didn't need a ticket, but nobody showed up.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what one of the things I've really been trying to figure out is just why is there just such an indifference to this to this story.
Right.
I mean, we've been fighting for 12 years to get any type of recognition for this story. That's why I'm so happy with you, Jamie, and you, Matt, back in the studio here, our main man back here. That you guys that we're doing this show because I mean, there's just been nothing out there.
Well, it's like the Detroit Historical Museum and the letter that I gave them, the DVD. They were going to call me to show to bring it together. I never have heard a word from them.
Like there's a few people that, the Historical Museum, I've been doing a speech there every year on the April 18th or thereabouts, right around the 18th for the Champions Day for a memorial thing. And they've been, they've been doing great. They're the ones that brought that plaque out. So I want to give them a little bit of, I want to throw some, shine their way because they definitely, they were the one that hosted that original 75th anniversary party. So they've been last year for the party was great. They brought out the 1935 banner. They had the 35 world champion
that would have
banner
been
at the party.
I would have liked to
because they redid because they had the Linwood bar built in their basement. They had a Linwood bar set up, and they had the flag. It was great. They, so anyways, but I'm just saying, like the main, like it's almost like but I just don't understand it. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to understand is why like people say, well, it happened so long ago. Well, Ty Cobb happened even longer ago than this, but Ty Cobb is an institution in Detroit. Yeah. Like every time Cobb's mentioned, there's somebody puts out a new book and it's like front row pay, front seat. Oh, we got to talk about this new Cobb book. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's things that happened long before this that still get front row attention. But this particular story, which is I make a case in these books that it's the greatest season in the history of American sport, and it's like it's one of those things. It just happened and just move on.
Depression, then the war came, and I think it just kind of it dissipated.
Well, sure,
a dividing line,
and that's what I speculate too, Tom, is that this is something that. That World War II completely interrupted all sports conversation. We come back from war. The Detroit has the golden age of the 50s. Gordie Howe, Bobby Lane, championships all over the place. The auto industry. I get it. I get that the world moved on. But I've said this before, and I've said it in the books. I'll say it again. Faced with what we now know, right? It's one thing for something to be forgotten, okay?
Right.
But it's a whole nother thing that when you come face to face and with what you now know, all right? What are you prepared to do about it, right? Detroit has been called one of the great sports towns in the country, right? But this is one of the things I've said over and over. But how great of fans are we really if when faced with the fact that the greatest season in American sport history that basically helped to shape Detroit sports as we know it, has been forgotten. We know about it now. Is it like how great of fans are we if we just go, just dismiss it because, there's something that, we don't really know all that much about. So it's just like one of those, a bar trivia questions that you're going to stump your local bartender with.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's way more important than that. And I'm saying like this, if we are great sport, like let's bring this story out. And that's really the component I'm trying to bring out.
That's why we're here. And thank God you wrote the books.
We're bringing it out.
Absolutely. So when you recorded this and then you took it back and you played it in its entirety, this 25 minutes, on WKAR, you said?
WCAR.
WCAR.
1090. 1090
WKAR. And then after that, you edited down a couple excerpts from it to share on Through the Arsenal Gates, which is the Dearborn Historical Museum's program, and you had clips from there. So 35 years ago? It got a playing, and then about 10 years ago, it got a clip of an airing. That's it.
Well, what I did is I put it away, and then I thought, could I ever put that into a DVD or match the voices up with pictures from the paper from 35? And like Charles, I went to the library and I listened, and I went through all of the archives there from 35, and I matched it up.
So this has been sitting, and we're gonna share it in its entirety somewhere on YouTube and Facebook in the videos. We'll get the whole thing up in its entirety. But today, I think, Charles, there were a couple clips that you wanted to dive into a little bit.
Yeah, because in the original, we actually Through the Arsenal Gates, we played that a couple shows ago, and there was a couple clips we played on there. That was actually, as we said, extracted from the original full on recording. And so, yeah, we was listening to the other day, broke out a couple other, clips that I really liked off of it. One of these days we're going to list the entire thing for everybody here, but we want to take you like along the journey. When we get done taking you through our favorite parts, then we'll put the entire thing out. And so anyways, yeah, so I picked out a couple of my favorite little, early, sort of clips from the early part of the interview. And
you said you wanted the first minute of it, right?
Yeah, the first minute to hear Tom on there introducing himself at the event.
All right. Matt, do I got audio on this laptop? All right, cool. Here we go. So this is
the first minute, just Tom kind of introducing himself.
When Tom first sat down and was kind of opening things up for his radio show.
You ready? It's my pleasure today. We're speaking to you from the Hilton here in Northfield, and this is the Lions Alumni Golden 50th Anniversary, and we do have some of the members from the great 35 World Champions team. And I would like to have the alumni director introduce these men, and they'll go around. And this is Mr. Bob James. Take it, Gene.
Thank you, Bob. This is we've got Jim Stacy here today, and we've got Elmer Ward, we've got Ernie Cadell, and we've got Frank Christensen.
Who's missing, Bob? Is somebody in here that we didn't get?
Is that it? Talking about the 35 team, we are representing a city that many people should realize that in 1935, Detroit was the only city in the history of the United States to have 3 championship teams in 1 year. That was our Detroit Lions, that was our Detroit Red Wings, and also our Detroit Tigers. And we also had Joe Louis coming up, and I would like to have these gentlemen kind of introduce themselves, tell a little bit about it, and I would like to know in their thoughts of that 35-year standing.
So that was Tom kind of opening up the show.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a 35-year-old cassette that bounced around your junk drawer for a while, and slightly different caliber of equipment that you're grabbing it, but it's good history to have.
Man. I was happy that you're because I brought in the cassette because Tom gave me a copy. I actually have a cassette player. I don't even know where I
thought you were going to hold it up to the mic.
Yeah,
hold your Walkman up to the mic.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to listen to it to get ready for the show, but you guys, I was like, hey Jamie, can you take this cassette and turn it digital? You're like, yeah, I can do it. I'm like, man, that's all. Like, so these guys turn the cassette into digital.
I didn't tweak it at all.
Yeah.
I'm not that. We need to find an audio file. That Bob guy you were talking about, he's good.
Oh, Bob Burnham, he's great.
Connect with him and have him send it through the oscilloscope or something. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. I'm just the guy that says ridiculous stuff. People go, "Oh, Jamie, you're in radio. You've been doing radio." I go, "No, I sit down and I just say ridiculous stuff. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to the rest of it. I'm just kind of guessing and fumbling along." So,
you're picking it up, Jamie.
Well,
we're making it here.
In '85, that was the best technology. That we had.
Absolutely.
Now it's 2020.
Yeah.
And you did with your phone.
Your phone. With a camera on your phone is like a Hollywood style camera with a mic set up.
I got to tell you,
the technology today it's
crazy.
I'm afraid of buttons. Really.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you opened up the show, and then you were able to talk to a few of the people. And Charles, what was the first clip that caught your attention?
Well, there's we had one for the through the Arsenal gates. We already played a couple of those, so people can go back and listen to those if they want.
Yeah.
And they were great. But I wanted to so the next one I want to queue up is it's 6 minutes and 15, right around 6 minutes. Let's start at 6 minutes in. This is a conversation with Ed Klawicki.
No, I think you're talking about something different. Hang on, let me see if what you're calling up is what I had ready to go. I now the one with Abe I labeled correctly. See, this is the part where I said I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, we'll get through it.
Clip 2, Ed Klawicki. All right, no, that is right. All right, so this is all right. So Ed Klawicki.
So I just want to introduce Ed Klawicki. Klawicki a little bit.
Klawicki, all right.
Because this guy, I think he's got a couple things to say. Well, I mean, you're just going to hear his voice, which is cool. So Ed Klawicki was the first Michigan State player to play for the Detroit Lions.
That's correct.
Yes, and so we got him queued. We got a picture on the screen of Ed Klawicki.
Yep.
And so his nickname. So anyways, Ed Klawicki's from Hamtramck.
Oh,
he was he won his high school baseball team won a state championship. And he was just one of these legendary, Hamtramck sports athletic legends in the 1930s. And so he went to Michigan at the time, Michigan State Agricultural College.
Yep.
And he played defensive end, played offensive. He was offensive back in those days, playing both ways, offensive and defensive end. And just a tremendous player. And one of the questions that people always like to find out whenever you say of Michigan State, whenever they get brought up, is how did Michigan State do against Michigan
that year? Yeah,
exactly. And so in 1934, which is when the year that Kulwicki played, Michigan State beat the Wolverines.
Oh,
yes,
that was a rarity.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since the 32 and 33 Michigan, U of M were just powerhouses, absolute powerhouses. They had Chuck Bernard in 1932-33. Chuck Bernard, like I say, I can't wait till we start talking about him. He was an absolute legend from the University of Michigan and played for the Lions. Played for the Lions in 34, and then Kulwicki played in 35. And then so Kulwicki, he comes in with the Lions, and his nickname was the One Man Gang was his nickname.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the One Man Gang. Yeah, that's what they call it. So because he was just a great, he started off, and it's anyways. Well, I'll cue. That's me cueing him up right there so that you can hear a little bit of words from him.
All right, and here's Ed in his own voice.
Ed Kulwicki, your impressions of the 35 in that era? My impressions, I could tell to start with, but the only thing I could recognize is that I wanted to become a part of that group, and there wasn't very many cracks that made the team. See, there was 4 or 5 fellas that made it, but I wanted in the worst way, since I had an opportunity to do that and contribute. And from the beginning, I wasn't so sure, except I had never played in any sport that I didn't play with a winning team, and I figured, well, hell, it's happened to me before. I can contribute here, and that's the way I feel, and that's what I'm going to do. And these guys were so great, and to me, and they helped me and accepted me, and we did it, not by myself, but I was able to become one of the group, and been really proud I could do it. As far as coming back with the accolades that we've been receiving here in the last few days, I think it's just wonderful. And I've been to previous reunions too, and they've all been great. But I never anticipated the welcome and the wonderful things that have been said about this team the last 3 days. I can't hardly believe it. This thing is happening, and it's really been very pleasant. And I want to thank everybody involved in the National Football League and the Detroit Lions organization.
You said that we never played with a loser, and you sure as hell held in there.
That's right.
That's that 2 o'clock in the morning happening there.
Yeah, that's so you can hear the ambiance going on.
That interview, those guys were playing the game of that World Championship of 1935.
Yeah.
They were just like kids at heart.
Yep. No, that's great. No, I love Ed Kulwicki's such a he's fan. And Ed, just to following this where he says I just wanted to make the team. Just like an addendum to that, in 1935 when he joins, he comes to the Lions. He was not wrong because the team had the 1934, as we've already talked about, was a dominating performance by the Lions in their first year. And in 35, they had very few weaknesses, as he mentioned. There was no he says there's no cracks in the team to even make a jump. And so the first four games he barely played, if at all. And but the more he every chance he did get, he got better. He contributed, and by the end of the season, he was one of their best players. He was he's he's being humble about his contributions, but Klawicki was a tremendous player. And I forgot the exact numbers he put up in the championship game, but he was, he caught several passes. One of the clips we showed the other day with the Lions, where if you had a previous episode, was a guy diving sort of, he caught the ball and it's like right up in the camera angle and he's like getting hit out of bounds. That was Klawicki in that video. And so that's what I mean. Like, so he became a very valuable contributor offensively, and he was he was a little bit more of a pass. He was a blocker, but he's also a pass oriented sort of a tight end, receiver, which was definitely a growing element of football at that time. So yeah, Klawicki. So it's just cool to hear his voice. He's a great player.
It is. Because these guys aren't with us anymore. I mean, there were only 10 left at the time, and
17 total. Of the whole 39 of the world champions.
Yeah.
So
I got in on the bottom of the ninth.
And it's good, and we're so glad that we're getting to share these. There was like a really interesting character, because he wasn't a player, right? Abe.
Abe Kushner. Yeah.
So are we going to do what do we know about Abe?
Oh, we're going to be talking about it. I think in the next episode because he's got the next section of quotes. He's going to be he's on this early bits of the video. In fact, if you play that video just another hair longer, you'll hear Abe talking about he's going to be saying what a great group of what the Lions meant.
Right, I got that. It's 1 minute long. I got that next clip there that you pointed out. Yeah. So who is Abe Kushner though?
You want to take
he was the trainer for the Lions, and he had Dutch Clark. It was his trainer, and he was the equipment manager and also the trainer for the Lions of 1934.
Do we have a picture at all on there? I thought I sent you a picture. He's like taping a guy's foot. He's taping a guy's foot.
He also helped bring up some of the stuff from Portsmouth, but none of the equipment.
That's him right there. And then there's another one I think I may have sent you with him taping a guy's foot. There he is right there. Yep, there he is. Check that picture out.
There he is. Yep. You see what he wrote on that? He wrote a little article for me, and I was really proud of that.
Yeah. So there's so like I say, he's Lions trainer. He's the one that and I actually met his son, and his son was the one that helped me connect with the unpublished memoirs. He had memoirs that he never published that he donated to the NFL.
Right. And the very last of this the DVD is a football that the players signed for me when I was at the reunion.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take the ball and have Abe finish it off and put 1935 on it. I talked to him a couple times by phone, and then when I called to have him do the ball, he deceased. He died.
Really?
I really felt bad.
But didn't
that.
you say? I thought you were the one that told me that he used to. Somebody told me this, that he was the one that actually on the game balls that he do the script on the balls. Or something?
when a player had an outstanding game with the Lions, he would address the balls and and give it to the players.
Exactly, like they would get the game ball. And he would actually write on the ball.
His writing and his etches on those balls and that stuff was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at his case here. There's a picture of him with his trainer case and his lettered. I'm going to imagine he did that himself, right? That's probably some of his amazing lettering on his case there.
Yeah, and I talked to his son, and I met his son just after his son had donated that case to the NFL Hall of Fame. And so we had that. I wish I'd never seen it.
Missed by that much.
Sure. But yeah, so we're so that's in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure if it's out in a display or not, but I mean that case still exists. That's what's so cool.
He never told me about that, but boy, I would love to see that.
Sure.
What was in there?
Yeah. I'll see if I can find a picture because I actually think I have a color picture of it in a display. I think it now that I think about it, I think it is on display in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Last time I was in Canton. They gave me a full tour. I went downstairs and saw all the archive.
Yeah.
They have so much stuff captured or not on display.
Yeah.
It's on. I don't think they got a room. They're going to have to rebuild because
make it larger.
Because football gets bigger and bigger.
Sure.
In his day, there was 11 teams. Now there's 32.
And people donate stuff constantly, and there's so much stuff.
And it's hard to get stuff in a museum.
Sure.
Because they really don't know the authenticity. Is it really
the
real?
providence of it? Yeah. But in this case, it was his son that turned it over.
But him, I mean, he was a legend.
Yeah. So Abe was there. He was a big part of the team. He wasn't a player, but he was a big part of the team.
And he was a major advocate for this team as far as he loved this team. And that's the next clip we're going to talk about. He actually talked about how much he loves his team.
And
but also he was he was the one that was really going, telling Tom, remember us, man. Like he actually said that to you, didn't he?
Yes. Well, what he
about
did.
the City of Champions as a whole.
I told you we had at the Westland Mall, the celebration.
That was the first celebration of it. Then you went, and after that. Yes.
He was so honored, and he was the only one that showed up. Absolutely, it was 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was so happy and proud that he was beside himself, and together we were like a father and son. I mean, it was unbelievable what he did, and invited me as a personal guest to be able to sit down with those players.
Yeah,
that's an honor.
But that's where you met him, was the Westland Mall, when you guys you had a set up for the 35 championships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So here's Abe, a little clip, first clip of him at the Golden Huddle, the 50th anniversary.
Next, I want to interview Abe Kushner. He was the trainer of that 35 great team. And Abe, your thoughts?
My name is Abe Kushner, and I had the particular good fortune of being associated with the finest group of athletes in the world. I was most lucky, most fortunate. It's a very important part of my life. I'm kind of stuck for words now. I'm overwhelmed by everything. I was asked to stage this reunion, and it's by far outlived all my expectations. All the fellows here I claim as members of my expanded family, and each one of the ball players on that 35 team was an all-time, all-around American ball player and gentleman. Thank you.
Couldn't put it in better words, Abe.
He's seems like such a humble guy. And if you look at this, I love this picture. If people are listening to the audio podcast, again, another one that's worth a trip over to see this image of Abe on the video. He's just so resolute. He's so meticulous in what he's doing. He just seems so serious.
When I did that interview, he had tears in his eyes.
Really? Yeah, I mean, you could tell. You could tell the emotion.
He was very emotional.
Yeah, you could tell. Well, you could just tell from his voice there that this whole thing meant a great deal to him, and that the fact that when he talks about the extended family. I mean, he's, that's not just lip service. I mean, this is a guy that, you could see him throwing this event because, it was, almost as like a family reunion to him, to bring a chance to bring all of his friends back for,
Well, he told me in some of the talks that he had personal correspondence with all of these players all over the United States.
Sure.
And I think that he was very instrumental in bringing the 25th anniversary and also the 50th.
Yeah,
he was a very important part of it.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But you can tell just from the sound of his voice that this is something that meant an absolute great deal. Yeah. And like I say, he said to you at one point, didn't he? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like he talked to you about the entire City of Champions as a whole, not just the Lions, and said to you, don't forget about us.
Well, he gave me the article.
Yeah, he gave you an article talking about the teams.
And that was the very first time that I ever knew all of the 24 world champions.
Yeah, that there was more than just the three.
Nobody really knew them.
Yeah, than more than just the three, right?
Yeah. Like I said, when I was a boy, I asked my dad about the City of Champions. He didn't know who they all were.
Yeah, because there was a lot of them, though. He told you that there was a bunch, but there was...
Yeah, but he didn't know he didn't know the whole spectrum of it.
Yeah, but there you go. But your dad lived approximately, in that time. And
absolutely.
So, but that's what's crazy, though, is that it's like... And I think that's another element of how it got forgotten, how this thing got forgotten was that it happens, and then like the world sort of moved on without it. There was so many bigger pressing. We're about to enter a world war. This is a time of, they just done this thing, and and it was the world moved on without it.
Yeah.
I'll bring up a little about the 35 Lions. One of the players was a 4-star general in World War II.
Yeah,
I have a note on that because when I had listened to the tapes and the Arsenal Gates, you mentioned that.
Yes,
and I was fascinated by that. I wanted to dive into that story a little bit.
Well, I don't know just which one it was, but
Ox Emerson was a pretty high-ranking guy
too. I
I
think it was Emerson, but I'm not sure. But
Ox Emerson,
4-star general World War II. That's pretty high.
Yeah. I'm not sure which way, but I know Ox Emerson he was in the Navy, and I forgot what rank he got up to a pretty high rank too.
With Veterans Day yesterday.
Sure.
People listen to this any times, but who knows when people listen. But any day of the year, I want to say thank you to people that served, no matter
absolutely
currently, past, and future. So thank you all. So that was Abe.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's
amazing cat.
Absolutely. So, how's it? Are we working on the next clip? Or are we?
Yeah. There was one more that I did. One more that I pulled down. Yeah, there was one more about Red Stacy.
Jim Red Stacy.
Yeah, it's he was talking.
And we're gonna
about
get a little
the,
mention. I think we're gonna get a little mention of Elmer Bear Ward on here too. Which
Iron Man. This runs about 3 minutes long, and
Yep.
so it's would any prep for this about Red?
I mean, he's he actually talks about him on this video himself. He's
So,
a
Tom,
lineman.
you were sitting there across from him talking to him with a microphone in his face. Tell me about Red. What do you know about Red?
He was a very exciting player. He didn't play very long, and he was happy to be a world champion, and he went out smiling.
Offensive and defensive lineman.
Yeah,
for the
I think he
Lions,
only
yep.
played about 2 more years after 35.
Yep.
But it's an interesting segment.
But I think we're actually going to hear from 3 different players in here: Red Stacy, Ernie Cadell, and also Elmer within this little 3-minute clip. I believe they're all on here. They're going to be sort of back to back to back, and that's why this Elmer Ward. Did you see this little clip right there? I think this is where the bracket's off at 12:04.
I cut it before Elmer.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Okay. Well, we can maybe bring him up on the. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll bring him up on the.
But this
the
is
next
Red.
one.
Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. Hit him with it.
There's been many changes, and I know this is complicated, but I'd like to have their impressions on what has changed.
Well, there's so many changes in 1935 and up to date that I just couldn't name them all. But the one thing that I remember most about in changes is the fact that our coach, Potsy Clark, back in 1935, if he looked over at me and he said, "Red, you're going to start today. I expect you to play 60 minutes." And he meant that. And my first 3 games, I played the first one was 58 minutes, the other one was 57 minutes, and the last one was, I asked Jack Johnson when he came in to take my place, I said, "Jack, can I stand because I want to win that hat that Potsy promised every man that won 60 minutes in here." And that is a big change for me. I won.
Thank you, Red. Ernie, what do you think?
Well, the number one, real quickly, I thought the Red hit it on the nail all right because 60 minutes was not unknown in this whole deal all the way around. And as we started to play all the deal, and then I can't really tie anything down that made us outstanding, that sort of thing. I think that maybe one of the things that went on was that when I played that wing back out there and I came around and had George Christensen, 250 pounds, and he was the largest guy on the whole squad. Now we've got our over to my left over here, we've got another little Chris calling. And all the things, I don't know if anything is right this minute that I can add to it at all, except that when we went out on the field, we went out there to win. And no messing around about it. And Potsy Clark, our coach, was a taskmaster, but by the same time he was a friend, and he expected us to win. He expected us to handle ourselves so we'd be in a position to go, and then he didn't back off at all. When one day he said we had a little problem at one of the other teams, and I'm not going to name them, but he said, when they come down to us, what we're going to do. So they came down, and he says, "There's the 11 guys that are going to play both ways 60 minutes, all 11 of them." And the psychology on the thing, it worked. They beat them.
Amazing.
Yep.
So we talked about that Iron Man
game. The all 11 guys, 60 minutes. Those guys were led. Cadell was one of them.
Was that the Bears? Was that
Packers?
The Packers.
Yep.
It was the Packers.
Yep.
So yeah, it's like people. It's like it's why do we? Is it such a thing when the Lions play the Packers?
Yeah.
Because it goes back to these guys.
Exactly. Exactly.
I told you last week, that's the Packers sponsored the Portsmouth Spartans.
Yeah.
And that's the tradition.
Well, yeah, but the tradition of the rivalry goes. I mean, however that the whole thing started, but at the same time, that the rivalry that they established in Portsmouth between the Packers and the Spartans and the Bears and the Spartans, that rivalry they brought with them to Detroit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yes, and so they brought that to Detroit, and it was in 1934 after this great season. We've talked about this before. That the Lions win their first 10 games. They go unscored upon for their first 7 games, and then at the end of the year, it's the Packers and Bears that knock them off at the end of the year. And at that moment, before they got there's all these Lions fans or the Tigers fans who had just come off of a Game 7 loss in the 1934 World Series. They're looking at the Lions. They're starting to turn their heads and go, oh, man, we got an NFL team here. Maybe we'll get a consolation prize of an NFL championship. And then the Packers and Bears knock them off. And so that's this idea is that, welcome to this rivalry, Lions fans, because that's what started to engage these people in this, in this team. And of course, the following year, 35, is when they get that redemption finally to knock these teams off.
Well, like I said last week, that's how they got the name the Cheeseheads. It all came out of Portsmouth because the Packers wouldn't play them. And one of the Spartans said, they're just a bunch of cheeseheads. Yeah. And it still goes on to this day.
Huh. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the rivalry, the development of these rivalries, a lot of times people just think, it's just because the teams are close. So, they're a rival because they're a nearby team. But, the actual, like I say, these conflicts begin, these rivalries, there's a source of it. And that's why it's, good to look back and show these teams. But I just love the 60-minute concept too. It's like, that's the definition of football folklore, man. It's just such a cool thing.
After the interview, I listened to Christensen. He played for 60 minutes, and he says, Tom, I watch him on television, and he said that the commentator said, the defense has been on the field for 8 minutes, and they're tired. And Christensen, what a laugh.
Yeah.
He said, how would those kids like to play 60 minutes?
Yeah. No, I know. It's just great. It's just, like I say, it is football folklore to sit there to say that, 60, these guys play 60 minutes on a game. And it's, so that's why it's great to hear from them, talking about that.
So what's next?
Yeah, that's those were the clips we had for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you got to catch you looking at my shirt, man.
Yeah, that's a nice.
Everybody's looking at my shirt
that's
today.
That's a nice pullover there.
Yeah.
Football season.
I'm showing this shirt. I got this as a gift. A friend of mine named David Marsh. He's a huge fan of our show.
Oh.
And
hey, David.
Yeah, and so he's the head coach of the freshman football team. He's been head coach of Brighton freshman football team for I don't even know how long, like 30 plus years. But the Brighton's a great program too. They and so yeah, I see you guys looking at my shirt. And I was showing it off, and like I said, I also put out a message there to people out there that we welcome gifts.
Oh, there you go.
We totally welcome gifts.
We just welcome listeners.
Yeah, we welcome listeners too, but gifts.
Sure.
We take shirts, hats,
bourbon.
Bourbon helps us fuel the show a little bit, and then
That's it.
food.
Actually, Jennifer,
take some food.
Jennifer Rader chimed in. She said Brandon and Augie and she were listening. So.
Oh, great! How you guys doing? Augie's a new kid.
Aww.
New kid he's the newest City of Champions fan. Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining. So everybody who's listening, we appreciate it. If you're watching it on Facebook or YouTube, it is an audio podcast. You can go over and subscribe on the audio side. If you're listening to the audio and we mention a clip or there's a picture that we're talking about, sometimes it's worth a trip over to check out the video on those as well. And it's just youtube.com City of Champions.
Yeah,
and
pretty
Facebook
easy to find. Yeah.
City of Champions.
Yeah, especially since, again, we talked about it in the opening of the show. There's not much out there on the City of Champions, man. Pretty much the stuff that's out there is stuff that we're putting out, and the books, the show. You do a Google search on Detroit City of Champions or YouTube on it, and you're going to find us pretty quick.
Well, we're heading into the holiday season. If somebody is a Detroit fanatic, a history fanatic, a sports fanatic, a Lions, Red Wings, Tigers, a fanatic of any one of those teams, this would be a great gift. Where can people find the books, Charles?
Well, DetroitCityChampions.com is the easiest way to do it online. But also, if you're in the Detroit area, stop in and there's the stores that I'm in are there's a 12 Oaks Mall in Novi, Laurel Park in Livonia, and Partridge Creek in Clinton Township. There's a Michigan Art store there. called Inspire Marketplace. I got a big display. You can come out and check out the books.
I thought you were in one of those old photomat booths by yourself.
No,
got you tucked away.
No.
So you remember those, Tom? Those little one-person photomat booths?
Yeah, you can actually find me in those stores. I kind of rotate between them. I actually work in the stores because I got a big store display inside there, and you catch me a lot of times at the Laurel Park Mall at but I kind of rotate between the stores.
All right. So City of Champions, DetroitCityOfChampions.com is a great place. And then
the store is in person if you want to come check it out in person. And
I'll tell you, once you get into that books, you'll never put them down.
And
you'll carry them right with you. I carry when I go to Florida, I carry all the books.
It's and they're great. They're rich, and you tell it through the news clippings and the photos. And the way you tie it together, and it's not blowing sunshine up your backside. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and the way I tried, the way that it kind of came together, like I didn't really anticipate it like this, but it just kind of organically evolved. Like the style of the writing that I did was basically I just act as a narrator where I introduce the situation, I introduce the player. And then I let the writers of the 1930s tell the actual story.
Because that language they're the ones that were there. So crazy.
Oh, it's
wonderful.
Yeah, the newspaper writing back then was so colorful. They painted this. I mean, it's like a literary masterpieces for it's like they paint this picture of what you're watching. Like it's not the Red Wings scored a goal on this play, it's the Red Wolves were on the prowl and they came down flashing steel. It's like the ice was shining and the steel was flashing.
That takes you back to the old Big Eight kind of 2020 news.
Yeah.
Well, the people were all at home in the 30s and the Depression, and really all they had was the newspapers.
Yeah.
Well, so they conveyed that imagery through it.
A lot of people couldn't afford the nickel paper.
Yeah, or to go watch the games and this and that. So they painted these pictures of it, and it made you like almost sad you weren't there. You're like flashing steel, glinting ice, and all these things, And then you start reading some of the other stuff, and they're talking about like these fights for talking about hockey stuff, where there's like bottles being thrown on the ice, fists. I mean, they don't pull any punches when it comes to like describing fights and all this stuff. You're like, man, this is a mayhem, their articles are great.
Well, that was like the 34 World Series when they took Ducky Medwick off the field from the Cardinals.
Yeah, it saved his life because the Tiger fans about to
Gehringer told me about that. He was afraid too because they were peppering out of Maven Field. They were throwing bottles and everything at Medwick.
Well, that incident where we talked about in the show, but a lot of times just to jump on what you're saying a little bit. Is that incident, that's one of the incidents that people remember from the 30s Tigers. And a lot of times they go, oh, they were throwing stuff on the field and they had to pull Ducky Medwick out of the game. A lot of times that description of it doesn't go far enough to describe it. Excuse me. They because what ended up happening was it was a damn near a riot. I mean, it was almost a riot type of environment where they're like, if we don't pull him out of this game, these Tiger fans are about to literally tear this building down.
Well,
it was so
the only time in the World Series history that a player was escorted off the field by police officers.
Well, but he was removed by the commissioner during a game.
And that commissioner was?
Landis, Commissioner Mountain Landis. Yes, but I'm saying it doesn't do justice for like the fury that these fans had. Like they were throwing stuff, but man, they were about to murder.
There's so many firsts here in the city of Detroit in our athletic history. It's unbelievable.
All right, and we're going to get to more of them on the next episodes of Detroit City of Champions. Tom, thank you for coming in again. It's you're a treasure. It's a treat. We appreciate you being here without a doubt, and the materials you've brought. Just thank you for all the stories you share before and after the microphones are on. They're all fantastic. You guys should be jealous because Tom shares so much great stuff. You guys were here. We recorded another show. An hour, and then we went out, and it was another 45 minutes just talking to Tom in the lobby, and it was glorious.
Yeah, we should have had the mics on out there. We were talking stocks. We were talking all kinds of stuff. Like Tom's giving me some stock tips and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I got some more things to show you out there.
Oh, great.
Awesome. All right, so there we go. So DetroitCityOfChampions.com, and we'll do it again next time. Detroit City of Champions, the podcast.